3, 2, 1. Hey everybody, it's me, the Einstein of Wall Street. We are here with Trade Like Einstein. I am Peter Tuchman, and we're here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange in the balcony. History is made in this building every single day. Somebody with my long-term experience, I've been here for 137 years. It is my responsibility to help teach you how to navigate this market successfully. Boom! Hey everybody, it's me, the Einstein of Wall Street, here from the balcony at the New York Stock Exchange. You know I bring you all kinds of crazy stuff, people and companies that are breaking the ceiling in every respect, food, finance, fun, biotech, anything you want. What's most important, we know, that goes on in this show is that our hair looks good. Now, you know, to me, a great hair day means a great market day. This is Maya Frutiger. She's here to talk to us about her company, Minnow Ventures. Minnow Ventures?
Minnow Venture Partners.
But clearly to her, her hair is also as important as it is to me. And so I think we're going to go with, I'm going to give you a high five. Thanks. The hair is awesome. Anyway, so we recently, you and I, here, Money News Network, Trade Like Einstein, with Nicole Lappin, we've talked about a number of different companies, biotech, as it relates to women's cancer and women's different health care. We've actually, the last couple of episodes have been all about that, right? And so I've been on a roll here, and I think it's super important. You all know that I recently lost my wife to cancer, so it is something that is really important to me. This is a story that needs to be told, right? Disease in women is obviously the biggest challenge that is out there, even though, and another thing that's super important, which is going to be part of this story that Maya's going to tell us, is AI. You know how excited I am about that. I have a show with a gentleman named Dan Ives, who's the #1 tech analyst in the world. He works for Wedbush, and he's the guy who called, you know, NVIDIA at $108. So he is a specialist in all things AI. So I'm going to toss it to Maya and let her tell her story about her company, about Minnow Ventures, about what is so special about what they do. It's, you know what? I know I look like Einstein. I'm not that friggin' smart. It's boom, way over my head. So I'm going to let you toss the ball. Welcome to Trade Like Einstein. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. So a couple of things. Thank you for the warm introduction.
My pleasure.
We are a advanced technology-driven venture platform. And some may be scratching their heads as to what that means,
right.
But specifically, we have a proprietary platform that is also an impact platform, which I'll get to in a second. But we de-risk biotech.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean?
Yes,
right.
What does that mean? And I may interrupt you multiple times
please
to
do.
explain, because look, the terminology, you're speaking a different language than I speak and a lot of the people do. So I really want you to be able to tell this story because it's really important.
So in a lot of cases, what you've seen in industry is the traditional sort of approach to drug development.
Right.
So as we know, companies will, perhaps biotech specifically, will create companies around certain novel molecules, but those companies will live in that R&D stage for quite some time because, as we know, drug development, it's a process, right? So you don't just go to a drug to market overnight. It takes a lot of time. And there's a lot of dollars.
And the cost is huge. It's
the
insane.
cost is significant.
Dollars, yes.
The cost is significant. So what we wanted to do as part of Minnow Venture Partners is enable these early stage companies, enable that R&D process from start to finish, right? Through our platform, through our capabilities, through our knowledge, pass that on in many ways. But to make a long story short, our platform, which is called Big Fish, we're Minnow, but we have a big fish.
I love it. Okay.
Is that we are really applying our expertise and our proprietary capabilities, advanced AI, ML,
What's ML?
Machine learning.
Okay.
And in the future, when we get there, some quantum applications as well to enhance our computing capabilities. Now, again, what does that mean?
Right.
So if you're looking at a novel molecule, it's still on the bench side, right? Okay. So, for example, a researcher is evaluating whether this is something that is potentially worth pursuing, right? There's a lot of money and time that is spent into that process of identification.
Relative to molecule, meaning relative to disease.
Yes, any molecule, right. So, for example, let's say we're trying to develop a new medicine that is targeting a rare disease, right? Or cancer of any form, for that matter, is you have to start somewhere, right? And that typically starts at that molecular level, and then you develop it thereafter.
Right.
But again, this takes a lot of time and a lot of money. Now, with our capabilities and with AI and advanced technologies in general, that computing power allows us to sort of dig in and analyze what the potential of that drug could be to accelerate that entire process
Right.
in a very profound way.
Right. So, so think about it. We know VC, right? We know people. There are companies that raise capital to help companies do things. But then there's also what you're doing is you're transcending that in so many ways. You have your own proprietary platform. So not only are you offering the capabilities of your platform and AI to these companies, as well as getting money so you're adding a strategic partnership component to this. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so give me a little breakdown of who are the people, you don't by name, but who are the people. So how did you, I just asked you the question. So you've got to have some really crazy smart people who know AI to the next level to be able to have built your own proprietary platform.
Yes.
Right? Because there's AI and there's AI. So explain to me what you got a team of 3 people. Right, and what's their makeup?
So my partners and I. So brilliant. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by individuals that are far more intelligent than I am. They are both physicists. They are technologists. They have been industry leaders in developing novel tech, both on the semiconductor side as well as on the biopharma side, and are really sort of the pioneers of many of these AI applications, specific to biopharma and healthcare, right? And so, of course, that talent has supported the build out of our proprietary platform and capabilities, and we hope to just grow onto that, right? We are somewhat new. Naturally, I mean, we've been doing this for a long time in previous lives and roles,
right.
But Minnow Venture Partners is really here to kind of shake things up on the R&D side specifically. We know both on the VC side, both on the industry side, how much money gets put toward early stage ventures, early stage development, particularly around R&D.
Right.
And the key difference is you have a lot of companies that produce revenue, of course. I mean, that's a hot target for VCs naturally. But in biotech, you won't necessarily produce revenue because you're in R&D phase until you produce some kind of liquidity,
That's the biggest challenge.
Right.
And sorry to interrupt you, but we see that here also. You'll see it in stocks, right? Biotechs are some of the riskiest names. Obviously, you're on this long journey trying to develop whatever you may be developing, whether it's a drug or some kind of a treatment or something, and then you have to deal with the FDA. And so that whole long journey. I want to interrupt you for a second because Dan Ives and I have this show. We talk about AI a lot, and I didn't really understand AI till he and I have spent week after week after week trying to understand it and where the benefits are. Your general public are scared. I deal with a lot of younger people who I'm trying to help teach about markets and investing in their futures and all that stuff. And everybody's initial response to AI was one of fear, right? That it's going to outsource human beings, that they're no longer going to be jobs for me. I'm going to come out of college. AI is going to outsource all the humans involved, blah, blah, blah. And Dan has made it clear to me that the benefits clearly outweigh the risk as far as that goes. And then I would ask him, so what industry is going to benefit the most from AI? And he always says healthcare. Right, so this is important for you all to know. If you're out there looking for what do I do when I graduate college, or what should I be studying? Where are there going to be opportunities in the new world? And so AI is clearly one of them. Right, we know we've spoken about it week after week. This is a revolution. We're in the second inning of this AI game. Right, and we know the greatest players in the game have actually been the biggest participants in this market rally we've seen for the last couple of years. So think about this. So in the old days, my father was a doctor, well-known doctor, lived into his 90s, was practicing medicine into his 90s. He actually was practicing medicine even when he didn't recognize the patients anymore. But, however, one of the things that he had a problem with was the disconnect once we sort of brought computers and technology into the relationship between patients and doctors, right? That you could tell so much more from just grabbing a patient's hand, holding their hand and asking them how they were, rather than you sitting in that, in that little robe in the third waiting room while he sits there looking at the numbers, which is completely meaningless. But how is AI going to infiltrate our world when it comes to healthcare? Imagine a doctor who's dealing with a disease that you may have, or a syndrome, or any number of the new things that we're dealing with in this crazy world, and now has the capacity to have information. Look, in the old days, you'd look through the old books, you'd go to the library, whatever it was. Now to be able, it's all information, right? The information is the key here. And so to be able to avail yourself of every possible bit of information before you make a decision. So I asked you, how is this going to be? How is AI going to infiltrate the platform that you're building? And what did you tell me? You explained to me how amazing it is that along the way, the journey of R&D for a drug or a treatment is constantly going to be able to be updated, right? You talked about de-risk. We know
Yes.
de-risk on Wall Street relative to hedging a position. If I'm long equities and I'm afraid that the market may be under attack and that we may have some kind of a sell-off, I may short the S&P 500 to hedge myself up. De-risk is to take the risk out of the equation. You said de-risk relative to this, meaning that along the way, while you're spending lots of money trying to figure out in R&D, trying to figure out the possibility and plausibility of this being something really groundbreaking, now you've got this little friend on your shoulder who's at every part along the way going to be able to tap on your shoulder and go, this is good, this is not so good, this is where we should put our money. So give me a little bit of a dynamic on that.
Similar to how traders have it, I imagine, I've never been one, but based on what I know, you have an expansive view of the market, and not just here, but internationally, globally. So imagine that same application into the drug development process from the very beginning all the way to its clinical potential, all the way to its market potential, right? And then commercial strategy, and then ultimately like the benefit it would deliver to the patient, right? So having that expansive view all of a sudden changes the game and de-risks that asset, because again, millions and millions and millions of dollars are going into early stage development and innovation in some of these technologies.
Hoping it's going to work.
Hoping that it's going to work.
Right.
But it's so fragmented and siloed into these various development sections of that process that often those two things aren't talking to one another, right? And so while there's a molecule, or again, not even a molecule, let's just say even a drug that is in clinical trial. I'm just using this as an example. What if you all of a sudden knew that combining that therapy with another potential therapy makes the efficacy of X, Y, and Z 10 billion times better, right? And so you have now opportunities to go into these disease areas and targets in ways that were, they're completely unprecedented. And so AI in that way, I would say, I understand some of the fears around it to some degree, right? But the world is moving in that direction, in my view, and the benefits, as you mentioned, definitely outweigh, right? I mean, beyond measure, and especially when it comes to human health, especially when it comes to also, I mean, if you think about national security to a large degree as well, right? I mean, creating biologies, chemistry that have to do with agriculture, that have to do with, again, biologics, right? And all of that. I mean, it's all interconnected, and it's just going to continue growing in such a profound way, but also in an extremely beneficial way.
And you're talking about saving time, saving money, and actually getting efficacy. That's really the key. Think about, there's so many things that we run into along the way, treatments that don't work. So you reminded me, because at the end of my wife's life, we were trying to come up with a treatment for her, right? And there was, cancer, there is sort of a cookie cutter way that doctors approach cancer. You have this kind of cancer, this is the treatment you're going to get. And unfortunately, I was able to find a doctor who was a bit of a rogue guy who actually left traditional cancer treatment, because he's found that if you take a little bit from column A and you add a little bit of column B and put together and make this cocktail that may not be, FDA approved yet, which is also something else we could talk about, you may be able to have breakthroughs. And in that way, I think AI will work in a great way. But just think about it. We're living in this life where we are being inundated. Mental health, right, has never been, and they've never had to deal with, think of post-COVID and mental health. We did a story recently about suicide relative to mental health, post-COVID, and within the world of social media, right? The world has changed. For me, I'm trying to sort of debunk, I don't know if debunk's the right word, just trying to break it down, give us a bit of a breakdown of what life looks like on the other side of COVID, right? And what we're dealing with as far as body. Look, I got COVID March 15th, 2020, patient 0. I have severe long COVID. I've had 9 surgeries since then. I got meningitis. I've gone through every possible, connective tissue, all this other stuff. And our bodies are being bombarded with so much madness in the foods we eat. I love that you brought that up, too. Think about that relative to how AI is. And this is not only an AI story. I think it's a story about human beings getting involved with the incredible abilities of AI in a field of biotech, trying to get answers. And then what's so exciting about what you're doing is you are sort of like one-stop shopping as far as that goes, right?
To some degree.
Yeah, look, so you're taking a company that has funds that are going to be pinpointed to a specific ID. Can you give me a little more input on your proprietary AI part of that platform, and just say what you can say?
Well, I mean, we say this internally, we don't really advertise it, but our internal joke is that we're creating a supercharged super stack, right?
Okay,
a technology stack. So in a lot of cases, and I don't want to lose any of the viewers here, but, AI is sort of a buzz term in a lot of ways. Yeah. AI needs some support to work, right? Machine learning needs some support to work. Now, those things in isolation don't really do much for one another, but brought together they do. And how you bring those together is sort of through that proprietary code, algorithms that sort of are able to talk to one another in a way that is perhaps different and proprietary, I guess, to our platform.
Right.
But you are building bespoke code, bespoke models, to sort of be able to distill very complex data and get to a conclusion with insights that actually give you recommendations forward, not just pull together a bunch of text, right, where you kind of have to still get to, okay, well, what does this mean for me, right?
Just having more information is not the answer.
Right, but it's having all of that information come together in one place. Right. And then also take away, the recommendations from that, right? So you see that kind of at that superficial level with ChatGPT, which is wonderful, but it distills what it knows and it kind of provides you whatever, answers to whatever question you may have. Right. So this is, in a way, a more superior form of that, but that's just one angle, right? So it's that one aspect that sort of performs from the large language model side, right? But then you also have the computing power and analytics side, right? So what does that mean? So that gets to more of the scientific aspect of things, getting really down to a molecule, being able to really understand it and its forms and where it can be applied, right? That's an entirely different ballgame that people don't see as often as part of AI, but is so critically important to sort of de-risk and accelerate that process in a very meaningful way. So we're focused on that. And the other point I would say is health tech, right? So when we're talking about healthcare, and we're talking about hospital systems and so forth, that's another thing that we evaluate, right, from our proprietary platform standpoint, because we know that there's a huge need from a pure tech perspective to sort of progress some of those healthcare systems, to support some of those healthcare systems, right? And there's a lot of solutions out there. But when it comes down to really understanding, is this a short-term solution, or is this really a novel technology that has the potential to really sort of change the game? And that is what we're looking at.
Wow. That's a mouthful. No, you know what? Look, I got more questions than I even we started with here. That's really extraordinary. Look, I love stories. I love stories that are going to start changing our lives. Life is really, it's really hard to get to where we've gotten to, right? Some people have a lot of trouble getting up in the morning, finding gratitude and trying to figure out, how do I navigate this day? And then we've got on top of that people who are dealing with illness. Look, we get sick, we go to the doctor, he prescribes some meds, you go to CVS. We're not endorsing CVS. It is a publicly traded company here. And you get the medicine, you take it, and you feel better, right? It could be COVID and Paxlovid. It could be any number of things. And we don't really acknowledge what goes into. If you go back in history to the beginning of aspirin, the beginning of penicillin, there was a time in literally almost people who are still alive today that where polio was a thing, or penicillin had not been invented yet, or steroids were not around. Think about, we are actually living a really blessed life when it comes to biotech and big biopharma, I guess you would call it, the drugs that have been created in so many that we're fighting in so many different diseases. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
Well, no, I was just going to say, and industry is just one side of that coin, and I think that's what a lot of us know, right? So when we think about where do drugs come from, we always think, oh, biopharma, pharma, right? But there's an entire other side to that coin, which is really the academic institutions, the research institutions, and all the innovation that happens on the grounds there. I mean, that is incredible science that requires industry partnerships to sort of bring to light, right? And there's a lot of that going on. And so you asked earlier, one of the things, who do we partner with, right? We're built for partnering. We're built to accelerate those technologies, both at the institutional level, industry level, and, potentially down the road, even more so on the founder level,
So, you know what, that's really exciting to me, too. I mean, you all may think we're whacked out and we don't know what the heck we're talking about, but trust me, this is really exciting. Just listen. If you got to play it twice, play it twice. But think about, what excites me is I'm a team player. I love partnering up. I like surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me, right? Because at the end of the day, we live in this super specialized world, right? I can't be really good at all these different things. I'm good at what I'm good at. I know what I know. I'm really clear about what I don't know. Mm-hmm. And we, in this specialized life we live, and whether you're in social media, whether you're in biotech, whether you're in the stock market or whatnot, it takes a city to get through all we need to do from a career point of view or just a life or a family point of view, right? Nobody stands alone. Nobody's an island in that, old kitschy phrase. In that way, we really need so many different input into it, and especially in what you're talking about. You made me think about the fact that, so you've got this. You have a molecule, could start with a molecule, start with a disease, start with an idea. You've got this journey which needs money to do it. Now you throw AI into it. And imagine if with all this extra information along the way, which can avail you of potential partners that may be helpful on this journey. I mean, it's funny because I've traded biotechs before, and I've seen them go from $2 to $3,000 and back down, waiting for FDA approval. I mean, that journey is a brutal one, right? I mean, people will put their whole lives work into making a drug or something. It's usually very mission oriented. If someone's doing that and making a product or a drug or whatever, they're all in, right? And they can get to the point where we're ready for FDA approval and you may not get it. Right. And imagine how many people's dreams are completely exploded and how many trading accounts have been exploded in the same right.
When that's where we would also come in, right? So
yes,
there is
de-risking,
but de-risking from the outset, but that's actually a great example. So in this case, let's say of course, it depends on what the clinical points were for not getting through trial naturally, but in a lot of cases, if it's an efficacy issue or whatnot, right? Drug repurposing is a market that no one really talks about, but it's pretty significant.
Ozempic.
Yes,
right?
it's pretty significant. Now imagine if we're able to see how a drug can be repurposed. Yeah. For example, that's one of the things that we aim to do with the Minnow Venture platform. Yes, Big Fish, is that we can quickly identify what could be a complement to that, right? To either drive the efficacy potentially, naturally, or target it for other indications. Right. I mean, that's significant. And so all of a sudden, at this point, it's probably billions of dollars that have gone into developing that drug and almost bringing it through clinical trial, right? It's not lost. And as a matter of fact, there's still a lot of potential for it, right? But it's informed by the analytics, by the background.
What you can do. So that's a whole nother level of what you're talking about. Yeah. In the past, if it's not gotten the FDA approval for one thing, you've really had to be lucky to stumble upon an alternative use of this drug. That now, if you incorporate what you're doing, that opens up a whole nother thing. That's the big fish.
Yeah, that's the big fish.
The little minnow.
Well, so just Minnow is actually Minnow, the little fish.
Right.
There's a very biologic sort of strategic advantage to the minnow, right? Because it's nimble, it's agile, and it typically can go into crevices where other fish can't,
okay,
right?
okay, yeah.
So our whole philosophy is based on that principle. It's being nimble, it's being agile, it's being able to very quickly execute to drive some real change and outcome. We are extremely mission driven. For us, a lot of times what we've even done is we've just partnered pro bono because we want to be able to show people what the possibility is, right? So long story to say, the platform is Big Fish because for obvious reasons it gives a lot of advantage. At least we like to think so, right? So sort of supercharging the minnow with Big Fish.
You know what? I love that. So are you getting all this, right? Nimble, what were the three terms?
Nimble, agile.
Nimble, agile. There was a third thing. I forgot. Anyway, you know what? This is an amazing story. There's so much to it. I could talk with Maya forever and ever about it. This is the kind of stuff that changes the world. It's going to change the quality of life. That's all this is about. It's not about dying with the most toys. It's about the quality of life on this journey that we have. And life's way too precious to not get everything out of it that we can. I'm honored that you came on the show.
Thank you
it's
for
really
inviting
a pleasure.
me.
Thank you so much.
So great.
Right? So everybody check out Maya Frutiger and check out
Minnow Venture Ventures.
And there's a lot more you're going to see. You're going to see these people change the world. Look out for the Big Fish. I love you. It's the Einstein of Wall Street. Trade like Einstein, and that's all I got to say about that.